welterweight champion Tyron Woodley and Eve Edwards. Guys, it was an interesting night. You know, Dan Harding mentioned that it was the longest fight card we have had. A lot of decisions, but a lot of entertaining fights as well.
A lot of entertaining fights. And the thing I like about this card is some of the names we did not know before. You would now know. You'd be talking about those fighters on Monday. So I love the action pack. A lot of finishes in the prelim fights. And, you know, when you get into higher competition, people don't want to be finished. So it's hard to just knock everybody out and submit them. So it was some competitive fights, but we were treated.
Yeah, we were looking at the established guys on the main card, and those guys knew each other, and they were going back and forth, and that's why we had some split decisions there. The early fights, like Tyron said, man, those fights were really, really hot. And then the main event, that was a chess match the whole way through, and Fabricio showed his experience.
Well, let's talk about that main event. It went the full 25 minutes. I think some people thought heavyweight fights don't usually go the distance. Werdum, a commanding win for him. So, T-Wood, why don't you take us through the highlights?
Well, Fabricio Werdum was rewarded for the risk for fighting the younger fighter, the young, smokier fighter. He did take some head kicks, though, that rocked him, but he showed his experience. He kept his composure. He kept pressing forward, which I think surprised a lot of people because him pressing forward might have set him up to get punched, might have set him up to get kicked in the head, but he went forward, he landed some great knees, great combinations, and he put himself in a position to be successful. He did get the fight down to the canvas at one point, and we thought he might have been a little bit more urgent to try to go for that submission, but he took his time. As I said before, he did not need to submit to win. He has great world-class striking, he has a ton of experience, he's extremely tough, and we've never seen him really fade in the fight.
Yeah, but what he did in this fight early is he was putting the pressure on and coming forward, and he took away Marcin's ability to collect that data by just putting too much on him, because what you want to do when you want to collect data is you want to put some offense out, see the reactions. He didn't let Marcin do that. You look at the punch count numbers on this fight, and he just put too much on him for him to be able to do that. So great job by Fabricio Werdum.
Yeah, the 23rd professional victory for Fabricio Werdum. I'm curious, Eve, what you make of the strategy tonight. We know working with Rafael Cordera, King's MMA, you know, the Muay Thai is on point. I took this man, Tyron Woodley, to King's. He can attest to what kind of training they do.
It wasn't a good day for me either.
No, it wasn't. But you learned a lot. But what did you make of the strategy of keeping it on the feet more than on the ground?
You know, he was having success there. He never had any problems on the feet. There was a few times he got hit with some shots, but they weren't enough to take him out. And also with Marcin only throwing one-shot big kicks. He wasn't throwing combinations, and that was a good way for Fabricio to just take the shot and then counter back with some good punches. We see here, Fabricio comes in with combinations. Every time he's attacking, he's throwing multiple punches and looking to get to the clinch and attack that opponent, while his opponent was only firing back one shot at a time. So that was a great job by Fabricio to minimize what his opponent was able to do and capitalize on his opportunities.
You know, it's not all about just capitalizing on opportunities. Marcin had him hurt. You have someone hurt, especially when the situation where you're the underdog, and this is a chance for you to really catapult yourself into contendership. You hurt somebody like Fabricio Werdum, a former champion. You better jump on him like white on rice. I saw a few times where he landed those head kicks where he should have pounced on him, and he did not. He missed an opportunity.
Well, yeah, let's talk about it a little bit more. If you were coaching him, I mean, how do you inspire somebody to follow up more? How do you get him to keep putting those punches in bunches? Because, like you said, there were times when he had him hurt and he wasn't able to fully capitalize on that.
No, we talked about it in the break room, talking about throwing one kick at a time. Not leading that kick with strikes before, not finishing with something afterwards. I think that when he had him hurt, maybe do the old Dan Henderson trick. Throw that jab out hard out there just to have it, and when it's time to drop the bomb, put yourself in perfect distance, and measure yourself. So I think it was maybe the overwhelmingness of being in there with Fabricio Werdum. I think he said, hey, man, if I get this guy to the ground. There was a few times he actually went for the takedown, which means even like, what are you doing? Let him go. Disengage, get back to striking distance, and try to, you know, look right there, head kick. That was a time right there where I would have stepped forward, 1-1-2, wait on your opportunity, maybe counter a strike, and go right back with a sharp right hand.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where it's quantity over quantity. You know, he was throwing the minimum amount of shots that he could, but when you put a bunch of shots on a guy, he has to defend different things, and your brain starts to slow down. You're blocking a hook to the head, but then the straight right is coming, or the punch comes underneath that elbow. You want to give him a variety, and you want to give him a quantity in that variety so that you can create openings.
Because we also have seen, you know, when Fabricio did lose his title to Stipe Miocic, his chin was out there. You know, I'm not going to lie, I'm screaming in the studio here, hands up, because Fabricio does have a tendency sometimes.
He heard you. He tucked his chin right when you said that.
You know, he does have his hands a little bit low, so the volume on Tybura's part could have been been successful for him.
Especially on the break. You know, that's where he's been susceptible in the past, where he's on the octagon and he breaks away with his hands down. That's a very, very bad mistake. It cost him the world title. I thought that being in a Greg Jackson camp, they would have identified that. They would have seen it as a weakness, and they would have prepared Marcin to go in there and on the break be prepared to throw that high kick, be prepared to throw overhand right, or some type of attack that he can exploit that weakness.
Yeah, when he was breaking out of those clinches, Fabricio had him in a couple clinches. He wasn't ever able to land a clean knee that was able to hurt Marcin. When Marcin was able to duck his head out, there was openings there. Fabricio was holding on to that clinch, and his hands are dropping as he escapes. As he comes out of that clinch, fire back and return fire at that point. You have opportunities there because your opponent's hands are down and his chin is exposed.
Now, guys, we'll probably get into this a little bit more as we roll on with the show, but we know that Ngannou and Overeem are fighting. Do you think Fabricio's performance tonight, Eve, was good enough to put him in that first position for contender?
I don't necessarily believe it was good enough to put him in first position for contender right now. We have to wait for that fight between Ngannou and Overeem to happen. I mean, those two guys are explosive, powerful athletes, and they get a lot of knockouts between those two. So if they don't get a finish, and we look at that fight and weigh the possibilities of either winner in these fights fighting Stipe, then that's when we look at it. But when we look at Fabricio here, he is putting pressure on his opponent. He is somebody that is going after it. If he wasn't fighting a guy as tough as Marcin Tybura, he would have gotten a finish. We got to give Tybura credit for staying in there, taking the punishment, but still trying to win, even though he should have done some other things to capitalize on the opportunities that he had.
I think if Ngannou wins, he's getting a shot.
Yeah.
No matter if he
Just
wins.
because he's fresh talent,
Because
too,
he's
right?
fresh talent. He's a new face.
It's a new matchup.
It's so many rematches with these guys that if he wins, I believe he's going to go right to that spot. Now, if Overeem goes out there and he completely starches him, knocks him stiff, now we might see another fight with these two guys. So unless something crazy happened in that fight, I believe if Ngannou gets it, he's going to get the nod.
Well, I do agree with you, though, Eve. Tybura showed a lot of grit in there tonight, and, you know, we always say you learn more from a loss. Going in there with a former champ going 5 rounds is a great learning experience for him. No shame in the loss tonight. T-Wood, though, our prelims, as you mentioned, we saw a ton of finishes. A lot of